Broadcaster Sangita Myska was mysteriously axed from her LBC show last year. And while she's never explained why she was let go, there's been plenty of speculation that it was over one particular interaction with the guest. Just days after Iran launched a retaliatory airstrike on Israel last April, Israeli spokesman Avi Hyman appeared on Myska's show when this happened.
What Israel did by taking that action against Iran was escalate what is already an incredibly fragile situation.
Sangita, that's an outrageous framing of the reality.
It's not an outrageous framing. I've just been speaking to somebody who is a diplomat to Iran from the UK government. That's not an outrageous framing of it. What Israel did was strike what is considered in diplomatic circles the sovereign territory of Iran, whether we like it or not. No. And there was undoubtedly going to be a blowback. So did Israel game out what was going to happen next?
Firstly, I'm not going to speak directly to that strike. What I can say definitively, and this is why it's outrageous, I can say definitively is that wasn't an embassy, it wasn't a consulate, it wasn't any type of diplomatic mission.
It's been widely reported as that.
Because that's what Iran says. Because that's what Iran says. So would you like to copy and paste?
Are you suggesting every single news organization in the world has got that wrong?
Why do we take these psychos so seriously? Why do we take those psychos so seriously? I mean, I know people watching this show don't. Much of the media does, right? Which is the heart of this story. But far from being outrageous, what Sangita Myska was doing there, her framing of that situation was completely correct. Yet just a few days after the show aired, Myska quietly disappeared from the airwaves, leading to a public outcry. 25,000 people signed a petition to reinstate Sangita Myska at LBC, and over 100 media personalities signed an open letter in support of the broadcaster. She was hugely popular, by the way, before this all kicked off. And Myska has never revealed why LBC cancelled her show, but many suspect it was because she went a little too hard on Israel. How dare you hold a politician accountable or talk about trying to at least adhere to international law? But now her former colleague, James O'Brien, has decided that he wants to set the record straight.
What happened to Sangita, even at LBC? No,
that's just Rolex, mate. And I mean, you can say it because you've got free speech, but that's just crap.
Thank you.
All right. We all sit in. I'll tell you something because it bores me rigid. This, and I can't believe that certain people have allowed this lie to be perpetuated. We sit in a room every 3 months. Every single person that works here, we sit in a room every 3 months. They show us graphs of how our program is performing. Right? Everybody knows when someone's vulnerable. And it's not the graph of what audience you inherit when you come on air. It's a graph of how your audience falls or rises during the duration of your program. Every single person in this building sits in that room and watches a graph for every single program every 3 months. All right?
I don't want to get off topic.
No, you said it. You can't backtrack now, mate. You have decided you have decided to believe something that isn't true, and the only person that can prove to you that it isn't true has decided to stay silent and allow people like you to believe slurs and anti-Semitic conspiracy theories about her former colleagues. So
I didn't make an anti-Semitic slur or anything.
Yes, you are. You're claiming that someone has been censored or silenced when they haven't.
But that's not anti-Semitic. How's that anti-Semitic? That in itself is what's wrong with everything.
Okay, mate. I am setting the record straight on something, okay? And the idea that somebody would be silenced for being critical of Israel during a phone-in that is heavily critical of Israel is palpably absurd. You can dispute the fact that it's anti-Semitic. That's my opinion. And that is my freedom of speech that I am exercising, just as you are exercising yours. But if you choose to come on this program and tell lies about every single one of my colleagues, I will push back, okay? And that is what you are doing. I sympathize with you because the lies have been deliberately allowed to fester by somebody who can only answer for their own conduct. But it is lies.
I've watched that a few times, and just watching it again, I was blaspheming, obviously. Obviously, I'm sure you were too. Now, two things there. First, James O'Brien is accusing his caller of anti-Semitism for suggesting Sangita Myska might have fallen victim to the Israel lobby. He kind of backtracks a little bit, but he used that word. Apparently, it's a racist conspiracy to speculate that Israel has any influence over the British media. Well, guess what? Remember when the Israeli ambassador lobbied the BBC to put its documentary Gaza, How to Survive a War? Maybe, James O'Brien, that was an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory too. Or how about the time Britain's oldest Jewish newspaper, the Jewish Chronicle, was caught literally publishing fake Israeli intelligence fabrications that were part of a pro-Benjamin Netanyahu propaganda campaign. Presumably, I'm anti-Semitic. I'm a conspiracy theorist for mentioning that. And then there was that time, even before Israel's genocide in Gaza, that the BBC removed a series of documentaries for kids on Palestine and the Israeli occupation. Why? Because pressure group UK Lawyers for Israel didn't like them. Clues in the name. They're a lobby group that wants to advance the interests of Israel. It's called the Israel Lobby. If you want to know more about the Israel Lobby, because yes, it really does exist on both sides of the Atlantic, then you should stop listening to James O'Brien, stop losing those brain cells, and come instead to our next Novara Media IRL event. That's because I'll be talking to the man who literally wrote the book on how Israel manipulates the Western media. He wrote a tremendous history of the Israel lobby. That's on Monday, the 7th of April at 6:30 p.m. It'll be taking place at Earth, that's the venue, in Hackney, North London. I'd love to see you there. The link for that is in the description below. You can buy tickets. Don't just buy one for yourself, buy one for a friend as well. Elan is sensational. If you're not sure about him, you've never heard of him before, after you finish watching the show tonight, just type into YouTube, Novara Media, Elan Pape. We've done 2 interviews with him. One's got more than 1 million views. That is about his book on the history of the Israel lobby. Tremendous historian, tremendously intelligent man. My goodness, chalk and cheese with James O'Brien. Let's go back to James O'Brien. My second point about that James O'Brien clip is that in it, he blames Sangita Myska for remaining silent and allowing what he calls a lie to fester. Look, in my opinion, there is no way on God's earth that James O'Brien doesn't know that Myska will have been forced to sign an NDA. That's a non-disclosure agreement banning her from speaking out. Even if O'Brien is right about why she left LBC, which, by the way, I don't believe, you have some kind of assessment a few days after something like that, and then you go, no, I don't believe you, sorry. There will almost certainly be an NDA in place, and O'Brien knows this. So he's being a little bit short with the truth, shall we say, which is why I'm not particularly charitable about the rest of what he's divulging in that clip. So what he's doing there is holding Myska responsible for the allegations against LBC, probably knowing full well she can't answer back. Well, Sangita Myska does seem to have found a way of answering in her own manner. Just hours after that rant from O'Brien, Sangita Myska reposted this tweet. A huge thank you to Lou Haig for bringing the issue of NDAs and their horrific misuse front and centre in the House of Commons today. Why is it that parliamentary privilege should have to be used to expose the wrongdoing of organisations? So parliamentary privilege means that people in the House of Commons, I think laws as well, can say things that otherwise would fall to all kinds of lawfare. Basically, parliamentarians have very enhanced rights to free speech that the rest of us don't enjoy. It was posted by anti-NDA campaign group Can't Buy My Silence earlier this week, and it's about the horrific misuse of NDAs being brought up in the House of Commons. And in apparent response to O'Brien's diatribe, Sangita Myska also posted this over on Instagram. Dignity doesn't just mean always being stiff and composed. It means a belief in oneself, that one is worthy of the best. Dignity means that what I have to say is important. I will say it when it's important for me to say it. Dignity really means that I deserve the best treatment I can receive and that I have the responsibility to give the best treatment I can to other people. That's from African-American poet Maya Angelou. Kieran, what did you make of that clip from James O'Brien?
Well, first of all, let's highlight the fact that Sangita was replaced with none other than Vanessa Feltz. Vanessa Feltz, for those who don't know, is a card-carrying Zionist, unapologetic Zionist, and has uttered some extremely, let's call it what they are, racist things about Palestinians and the necessary separation Palestinians and Israelis in Israeli society. So James O'Brien can kick off all he likes. He can throw all the dummies out of all the prams that he likes. But I think that's a huge piece of evidence in and of itself. What else did I make of it? Well, I mean, you've already covered this, Aaron, in some detail, but I do think I just want to quickly run over a couple of things regarding the Israel lobby. There is, make no mistake, a highly organized and powerful lobby that works very diligently in the UK and in the US and many, many other countries. And it exists to serve the interests and objectives of the Israeli state. Now, there's a wide range of motivations behind it: ideological, imperialistic, geostrategic, economic, religious. But it absolutely exists. And actually, if one bothers to look, it doesn't even make a secret of the fact that it exists. For example, APEC, American Israel Public Affairs Committee in the US, and one example, UK Lawyers for Israel, which you mentioned, Aaron, here in the UK, both of which regularly boasts publicly of the anti-Palestine legislation that it's been able to impress upon the political system and the pro-Israel media coverage it has managed to impel from our fearless fourth estate. And just as a brief aside, just use a bit of personal experience. I worked in a London borough at the local authority, a large Muslim population. And after October 7th, 2023, the community felt that it ought to show solidarity with Palestine by adorning traffic lights, not obstructing them, but adorning public features, public furniture, etc., with Palestinian flags. And the local authority took the view that it was too risky to try and remove some of these, and in order to maintain community cohesion, and every single day, I mean, there wasn't a day that went by for 3 or 4 months after the flag started to appear that we didn't receive a threatening letter from UK Lawyers for Israel or the threat of a disparaging story from the Jewish Chronicle. All right. So, yeah, I just want to say as well, these lobbies might be exclusively Zionist in composition, but they are not exclusively Jewish. Few demographics imbue the Israel lobby with more power and virility than white evangelical Christians from the American heartlands. All right? I think that's a really important point to make. And the final point I just want to make is, in 2019, around the time of the second Jeremy Corbyn general election, many people, including many people on the left, became frightened to articulate these simple facts, right? Let's be honest with ourselves. As a Palestinian, I don't hold any grudge against the people who have acknowledged this. I get that if you're on the left, especially if you're on the left, and you're accused of racism by a very powerful, highly organized, as I say, lobby, it's a terrifying thing. But I get that. But no more. There's a genocide ongoing, and there are people who are paid to ensure that it continues. So we all have a duty, and I think most people on the left acknowledge this now. We all have a duty to call a spade, and an Israel lobby, an Israel lobby.